Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Musically Mindful, the show where I sit down with some of your favorite musicians, artists, and even some of your friends to talk about mental health within the music space. Today I don't have a guest, and the reason for that is because we're now in Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, being that we're in June. And I decided that I wanted to just talk a bit about mental health at a snapshot, really kind of discuss some of my own personal experience, what I think about mental health, why I'm passionate about it, but equally, try to educate a little bit on some statistics. And for that, I decided that I thought it would be more prevalent if I just spoke on my own, because at the end of the day, this is in no way, shape, or form a medical podcast. It is not a place for people to come to be perfect or to expect that I am perfect. I'm not a therapist. I'm just somebody that is passionate about mental health through my own dealings, through my own life, and in reality, just because I think mental health is important, if you couldn't tell by the hat. So I thought that a good place to start, and throughout this, I'll kind of interweave some of my own personal stories and personal perspective and experience, but just to kind of share some statistics about the men's mental health, especially primarily within the United States. I have read a lot of different things. I've studied, read different papers and whatnot, but also you can find information online which it doesn't take a lot. There's the National Institute of Health that has a section all about mental health. There's Mental Health America. There's a bunch of different organizations, even within the music space, like Backline, that do educate people and will educate better than I ever could. But a couple of statistics to share are that 1 in 5 of men in the United States will incur some kind of mental health condition on a yearly basis. Think about that. Think about you and your 4 closest friends. One of you guys statistically is in the likelihood of experiencing something, and that could be depression, anxiety, a lot of different, there's so many different things that you can incur with mental health. But it's crazy to think that 1 in 5, that's a fifth of the men in this country have some type of experience with mental health, some challenge. I think for depression, it's annually is something around here. You know what? Let me pull up my facts so that I can really be educated properly. Depression is around 6 million men in the United States. Anxiety, 14% of men. Suicide, and this isn't to disparage or make it a sexist thing in any way, but suicide, men are 4 times more likely to die from suicide than women. Substance abuse, men are not only more likely to develop a substance abuse issue, but more statistically likely to actually meet a bitter end. Men are twice as likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. From the schizophrenia standpoint, men account for 90% of people diagnosed, and that's before the age of 30. These are all different facts that I find fascinating, and truthfully is something that at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, it's numbers, right? Numbers don't always mean everything in the world, but equally, they're not to be ignored. And the reason that I start with all of these facts is because if you don't listen to the whole episode, then, you won't have to, worry about it. But if nothing else, you see, at least in the beginning, that there's education for us all to learn in terms of mental health, in terms of men's mental health, in terms of being aware of the state of mental health in America and amongst men. I personally have never been diagnosed with anything, and that's mostly because I never went to doctors and stuff. As a kid, I'm sure that I would have incurred. I do believe that I have some level of obsessive compulsive disorder. I certainly have OCD about things within my life. When I walk, I count steps. I do think like one, two, three, four, four, three, two, one, like in things in fours. I have little rituals that I do and stuff like that. I have a thing with symmetry. So I don't know. I'm not clinically diagnosed with OCD, but I've experienced and had some of the tendencies within it. I've equally incurred different levels of depression within my life. I spoke on recent episodes about a depression in this past fall and winter that I didn't even really understand that I was in. I also have spoken about back in 2018 when I had my back injury. That was the worst depression, arguably one of the worst things in my entire life. I shut down. I didn't talk to people. I didn't let people come and visit me. I was just in a room, laid in bed, angry, depressed at the world, didn't want to get up, couldn't get up, and just was angry and mad at the world and really sad about the state of what I had let myself get to. And now in hindsight can see that, I put myself in that scenario. I've equally incurred depression due to some romantic endeavors in the past. One of which, at the tail end of it was what led to me getting sober. I think anybody who incurs substance abuse, such as myself, has some level of depression or mental health struggles. Don't get me wrong. And I said it in the episode about my 3 years of sobriety. I got high because I fucking like being high. I still to this day, people when they get sober, they talk about, or rather they disparage drug use. They start to speak negatively about it. They start to say like, oh, it was a mistake. It was this, it was that. I don't regret a single fucking drug I've ever done. I don't regret anything. To this day, the taste of a Marlboro Red is still delicious and still tantalizing. Do I smoke anymore? No. Do I respect and love and admire LSD? Yes. Do I do it anymore? No. Will I someday? I don't know. But to dial that back and speak on the experience of depression, I have also had romantic partners that were clinically depressed. I've had friends that have been clinically depressed. And it is not an easy thing to deal with for the person that is or for the person that is with them. I believe that I have learned a lot of things in the past couple of years in terms of depression, in sometimes that you don't need to be the problem solver. Sometimes you can't solve the problem. You can't take somebody else's things onto yourself and put them on you and bear that weight because it isn't yours to bear. Of course, you can help and do what you're able to try to take care of somebody and give them support and love them. And, there's ways to communicate within depression where you can say, hey, is this something that you can handle? Is this something that triggers you? Is this something that bothers you? Understanding somebody and then you making the readily available decisions to try and aid in not putting somebody in that scenario. If you know that somebody struggles with something and you care about them, sometimes you go a little bit out of your way to try to help so that they don't have to deal with that. Now, I'm not saying that you should forego yourself for somebody else. I'm not saying, because believe me, I have my fucking struggles with that. But just trying to be there for somebody. The biggest thing that I think that I've learned is a lot of time in the past, I was talking to respond, or rather, excuse me, I was listening in order to respond, as opposed to listening to hear and just letting somebody be heard and understanding somebody and giving them the opportunity to vent and just talk. Because the reality of the situation is that, not every time that somebody comes to you do they really want your opinion or your advice. They just want an ear to listen. And within the realm of depression, obviously, is, a topic to talk about is suicide. And I mean, 4 times more likely than women is crazy. That said, and again, none of this is with focus to really make an uncomfortable separation or whatever the case is. But as a man in America who talks about mental health, I'm choosing to talk about men's mental health. So please, if you're a woman and you're listening, understand that you are heard and seen and not any less valuable, or that your mental health is any less. There's an absolute equality among all of us. Going into the part of suicide, this is where I can share some personal experience. Not that I have ever had an attempt. So let me get that out of the way. And to close the door on depression, I also don't want to act like I understand other people's depression or that I am an expert or anything of that nature, because depression is hard for people that incur it. It's difficult. There's different levels. Depression hits people differently. If you're not somebody who can understand that it's difficult just to get out of bed or difficult to make the bed, and you would rather lay on top of the bed with the sheets there because you just can't muster the strength to put the sheets on the bed, or you feel so bad about yourself and your situation that you try to harm yourself, or you try to use crutches such as substances or whatever the case may be. Not everybody that deals with depression has the outlets that are conducive to getting better. Not everybody even wants to get better like right away. It's the same, not the same, but similar to sobriety. Unless you want it and you try and you make it work, it can't happen. And that also has, there are people that have come on this show proudly that, Mark Brownstein, for one, that spoke about medication. If that's an avenue that you need to pursue, if that's something that will help you and balance the chemicals in your brain, then do that. If it's not something that you're okay with or comfortable with, then don't. But I implore that if you are dealing with depression, to at least try to understand that there are people that want to listen, there are people that want to help, there are people that love you and care about you. And if you don't think that you have anybody, go in the footnotes of this podcast, reach out to me over the email that I put in, and let me know if there's something that I can do to help. But I want to touch on suicide because although I have never made an attempt, I have had multiple romantic partners that have tried to commit suicide. When I was young in high school, I had 2 friends commit suicide. And since high school, there have been multiple of my friends that have died from suicide or drug overdose. An experience that I really can divulge is something that happened to me not very long ago, and the person will remain nameless. I don't know if he'll ever see this. It's not his business. It's not my business to share his with the world. I can tell the story because it's impactful. This is a friend of mine's boyfriend that I had known here and there, had always gotten along with, had good times, in the time that we hung out. But never became like really good friends, never became close or anything like that. After I really started, it was before podcast stuff really picked up. It was just when I was doing mental health related content on social media and when I was hosting some seminars at festivals and stuff like that. But I always used to end a lot of my posts and all of my things by saying, if I believe in you and I love you. And I also would make posts that said, if you ever need anything, or if you feel like you don't have somebody to talk to, you can talk to me. And one day, I got a FaceTime from this gentleman out of the blue. And I said, hey, how's it going? And there was clearly just some sense of he was not well. He was distraught. And I was just like, hey, like, is everything all right? Like, what's going on? And he was just like, yeah, like, I'm just not really doing great at the moment. And I was like, okay, like, well, like, I'm here for you. Tell me what's going on. And this guy turned his phone camera around, and on the desk was a knife and a rope. And he left the camera on it, and we sat in silence for a minute. And he just very kind of abruptly and honestly, he was just like, yeah, I'm sitting here and I've been thinking about killing myself for the last few hours, really the past few weeks. And I saw a post of yours that you made recently that said, if you need somebody to talk to, you can talk to me. So I'm coming to you to talk to you because I don't know what to do. And it was a very pivotal, it was a moment of, okay, I can't panic. I can't be mad. I can't be frustrated. I need to just try to de-escalate the situation, number one. And number two, just be here. So I just kind of wrote off anything I had to do for the next while, for the rest of the night. And I was like, hey, the first thing we're going to do, it looks like you're in a bedroom. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm in my room. I was like, okay, you by a window? He said, yeah. I was like, cool. I want you to open the window. He was like, what, for fresh air? I was like, just open the window. Opens window. I said, now I want you to grab that knife and that rope, and I want you to throw them out the window. Don't stop. Don't hesitate. Just listen. Take them and throw them out the window. And he took them and he threw them out the window. And I could see kind of a wave of calm start to come over him a little bit. And I said, all that we're going to do now is you are going to talk for as long as you want about anything that you want. And you are going to tell me everything that's going on that got you here. All I'm going to do is listen. If you want me to talk, I will. If you want me to say something, I will. But I just want you to talk. I want you to get out everything you possibly can. In the next hour and a half or so went by, and he just divulged everything that was going on in his life and how he felt like he wasn't where he should be and that he didn't feel good enough, that his girlfriend was... he didn't think that she deserved her love, and he just didn't feel good about himself, and that he wasn't succeeding at work, and he wasn't feeling good about he didn't feel like he had anything to put energy into, and he was just sad, and he wasn't in good health, like meant physically, like he just was in a bad place. And he's just like, yeah, I've just been thinking about it for weeks, just because, like, why not? Like, what am I doing here? I don't feel good. I don't want to be here. And I gave him my opinion, and that part of it I'll keep between, and the rest of our conversation I'll keep between him and I. But we came to a resolution at the end of it where I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call your girlfriend, because she deserves to know that this is going on, and she deserves to know what's happening to you. And if you aren't okay with that, then you call her and tell her. But if you don't, I'm going to, for your safety, for her, out of respect for my friend. And he said, okay, like I'll call her. You don't call her. I'll call her. I said, okay, are you sure? Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable enough to hang up the phone? He was like, what if I was like, what? And he just kind of stuttered, and I was like, hey, why don't we do this? I'll group her into the call so that I'm here on the phone and you're not alone. And he said, okay, I think that would make me feel better about it. I said, okay, great. So we call her, I call her, merge, whatever the fuck, add her to the call, and explain the situation. Just tell her, hey, we're on the phone. He's at home. He's okay. This is what's happening. and just told her the whole story. And she was like, okay, honey, I love you. I'm on my way home. Everything is okay. I'm not mad at you. I love you. I will be home and we'll talk about everything. And at that point, tears are flowing and the whole thing. And so we hang up the phone, or basically, here's what I tell him before we hang up the phone was that she's going to come home, like she said, and she's going to talk to you and she's going to be there for you and support you. What you and I are going to do from here forward, if you want, once a week, you can call me or text me or just let me know what's going on. I just want to talk to you so that you have a place. You know, I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to prescribe you something. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. But that is something I think would be good if you want it. And he said, I'll think about it. I don't know if I want to bother you. I was like, you're not bothering me. So we hang up the phone. His girlfriend, my friend, immediately calls me, and now that he's out of the situation, he's like, what the fuck? What? And I told her the whole story, how he FaceTimed me. There was a knife and a rope. I was like, when you get home, make sure you grab those and get them just out of whatever. Luckily enough, her mom works in nursing in psychiatric care, and they got him an evaluation. He went and had a psychic evaluation for 72 hours and got put on medication. And when he got out of the psychic evaluation and stuff, she kept me posted on how it was going. But he called me when it was done and he was like, hey, I feel a lot better about what happened. I'm really glad that I called you. And I said, hey, me too, man. Like, this is better than a different phone call that I could have gotten. And I'm keeping a bit of it ambiguous and what have you, but that night it really shook me. And for the preceding day or two, it really, really rocked me, and I didn't know how to kind of react and how to handle it. And it was super impactful. But the thing that it gave me overall was that it gave me confidence and knowledge in the fact that even if I'm not a doctor and I'm not I'm just a guy who talks about mental health on the internet sometimes. It gave me the awareness and acceptance that there is something good that I'm doing in some capacity. And me making a post that said, hey, like, if you ever need anybody to talk to, you can talk to me. And this guy deciding to call me and talk to me instead of going a different direction gave me all the belief in what I was doing. And the knowledge that you never know the impact that you can have on somebody. And for a number of months afterwards, we checked in every week, and he was getting better and better, and the medication was helping, and he was feeling better, and the relationship everything was moving up and up and up and up and up, until one week he missed it. And he finally got back to me the following week, and he was like, hey man, I had such a good week this week that I forgot to call you. And that made me really happy, because basically what I told him was, cool, man, then I don't know if you need me anymore every week. You have your girlfriend, your life is getting better. I'm here if you ever need me, but go live your life. Don't feel chained to have to call me every week. Text me if you want, call me if you want. And it was a pretty wild situation to deal with in the moment. Had impact on me after the fact. But also hearing stories of girlfriends that have had attempts, and the thought, obviously, in the post, in the aftermath of it, being like, wow, this wonderful, genuine, amazing human being that I love and care for, and there's a chance that they could just not be here anymore, or that I never would have met them because they would have made that decision. Suicide is real, and it's scary, and it is a major thing that we deal with in the world. It is a major thing that we deal with within mental health, and it is a major thing that we deal with in the US and within both men and women. And I just want to, you know, iterate the fact that suicidal thoughts are not to be taken lightly. I also don't think that I'm as self-deprecating as anybody a lot of the time, but I don't think that jokes about suicide are funny. I don't think jokes that even just to speak on a simple thing, like I lost my dad at 17, and this isn't suicide related. This is just death related. I lost my dad at 17, and the preceding years afterwards, sometimes my mom would be like, "Oh, like it's all right, I'll be dead," and da 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 da, or like so and so will be like, "Oh, fuck, like I'll just kill myself and whatever." And it deeply bothers me when I hear people talk like that for multiple reasons. Number one, you should never talk about yourself like that. You're here for a reason and you should want to be here. Secondly, in terms of my mom, my answer would always be like, "Hey, I already lost one. Let's not lose a second one until I have to, I guess." And don't I'm not standing on ceremonies. I've joking like, "Oh, fuck, I would kill myself." Like it's a turn of phrase, whatever. But truthfully, I've thought about that more and more as of the last little while, and I really don't think that it's a worthwhile joke. I think there's other ways to convey your humor or say that you don't like something or that you don't want to be there or whatever. But if you have experienced that in your life, not only am I sorry for you incurring the things that you did that got you there, if you feel weak enough that it's an option, know that it isn't the only option. And if you have somebody in your life that experiences these kinds of things, pay attention and communicate and try to help them understand that life is worth living and you want them to be here and that they impact you in a positive way. Um, all of the statistics, the fact that there's 6 million people with depression, the fact that it's 14% of people have an anxiety disorder. Anxiety is not something I particularly experience, but it's something I've discussed at length on this podcast and in life in general. And anxiety is deep. It's a physical thing. It's not like, "Oh, I'm just gonna not be anxious." Anxiety can riddle you and cripple you, truthfully. And I've watched it cripple people in numerous ways, whether it be like a mental, stage fright, or in conversation, or with the ability to share or communicate, or in a relationship, or just as a friend, or social anxiety. So this is a podcast about mental health in music. The amount of people with social anxiety that find stillness at a concert, or that are the opposite and don't want to be in a crowd, it's an incredibly major thing in people's lives in their day to day. Anxiety affects everything that you do. It affects who you are. It affects how you move. It affects your ability to do things, and overcoming it is not just like that. Nothing with mental health is you can just overcome at the drop of a hat. It's work and developing tools in your tool belt to solve these things or know what to do or what you need when you get into that scenario. I i, I like to think that I have grown a lot in my own endeavor. I spoke on previous episodes about me going into therapy for the first time last year and how wonderful that has been. And, I talked with Cam Hurd about the stigma around therapy. And at that time, I had not gone to therapy on my own, but now I could not be more of an advocate for it because if it's something that, not if it's something, therapy is something that can genuinely change your life. It can help you unearth things about yourself. It can help you learn things about yourself. It can help you find ways to cope with things. It can give you an outlet to vent. It can give you somebody giving you insight from a professional expertise that you don't have. myself included. I'm not a professional. I'm not a therapist. This is just conversation. But I think that therapy is something that everybody should give a try. Even if you're in a good place. I went into therapy when I was in the best place I had been in some time. And then I stayed through therapy when I went into a bad place. And now that I'm kind of back on the other side of it, I'm still I'm getting different I've gotten different things from therapy throughout. And I believe a statistic that I read was that um like one it was how 1 in 5 men, like I said, 20% will incur some type of mental health. And then I think it said that I forget exactly the statistic, and I'll see while I'm here if I can find it. But basically, it was just saying how it's a very minimal number, maybe 1 in 4. I don't want to paraphrase and act like I know the number, but that um, the majority will not go and talk about it. Men don't talk about their problems, and a lot of times viewed that like they are a problem or they have a problem, as opposed to just being able to openly discuss and be honest about an issue. Um, it is definitely not the same as it was when I was younger, but there is definitely still a stigma of men to be strong. And don't get me wrong. And I want to say this from a solely personal perspective. And if you agree, you agree. If you don't, you don't. And that's fine. There can be discourse or what have you. But I do believe that the strongest men are strong men, and not in the I can pick up a tool belt way. Sure, every man should be capable, should be able to be handy, fix things if you can, if that's a skill set, whatever. But the true mark of a strong man is the ability to be honest, be vulnerable, and in the same vein, put your fucking head down and get the work done. I think it's a fine line to walk. Feel your emotions. Be honest about how you feel. Talk about what's going on in your life, but also sack the fuck up and get shit done. And that's not to try to say like, "Oh, you're depressed, sack up." No. That's where the fine line comes in, because you're the one that has to do the work, whether it be medication or therapy or whatever avenue you decide to go down. It is also the recognition of awareness and truth within yourself and the honesty and vulnerability to talk about it. I don't think that men are given enough of a platform. I don't think people in general are given enough of a platform to talk about the struggles that they have in public forum. I don't know if it's definitely way more accepted now. There's less of a stigma. People are talking about it. People are creating projects about it. I'm not the only one, but to tie back into the fact that this whole podcast is about mental health and mental health in music. The jam scene in particular, music as a whole, it is not in the forefront to discuss mental health. When somebody is struggling and somebody is having problems, or there's disparaging on social media, or all of the negative things that come with that, there is not always a readily available platform for people to vent and to talk and to just be honest and check in with themselves and check in with their loved ones and check in with their friends. A lot of times we bury shit down because we feel like we have to be strong. A lot of times we don't want to be a burden on somebody else, so we just keep the burden on ourselves and we bear that weight, and it's heavy. The whole reason that I started this podcast is to create another platform for that, to help try to drive the conversation forward, to try to help make it as prevalent as it needs to be, to talk about mental health in the most minute way, in pillow talk with your partner, with your best friends, with your coworkers, with your bandmates, with your managers, with your booking agents, with your artists, anybody, not only within the construct of live music or that is into music, just anybody in your life, your parents, your siblings, talk about what is going on in your life. Do not force yourself to be alone. Do not force yourself to bury things down inside because that does not help. The only way out is through. And sometimes you need somebody behind you. Sometimes you need somebody next to you. Sometimes somebody has to lift you up when you can't lift yourself up. Now, again, I said in my opinion, you should always have the strength to try to get up on your own. But we don't always have it, and nobody is perfect. And I don't care how fucking tough you are, how strong you are. I consider myself a relatively strong individual. Everybody needs somebody sometimes. You always can have a shoulder to lean on. You may not cry, you may not need it often, but tell your friends that you're there for them, even if they never take you up on it. Like me, I almost never take my friends up on it because I don't want to be a burden and because I don't want to add to anybody else's shit. So I take it on myself, but I also make my time to journal, to meditate, to do my gratitude practice, to talk to my therapist. I do the work that I do that makes me feel better, that I can keep myself in check. And I implore you to do the same. And I think that the current state of where we are in this country with, there's a wave of sobriety, there's a wave of physical health, there's a wave of things that are going to positively impact the swell of men's mental health. And I want to be a part of that. And I want to be a factor in it, and I want to contribute in a positive way. I don't just want to be another statistic. I don't want you to be another statistic. I want us all to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And if that means mental health, if that means music, if that means sobriety, if that means physical activity, whatever it is, and or even if it's not, if it's video games or poet, whatever the fuck you like, whatever helps you find your center, helps you be yourself, reading a book, watching a TV show, listening to record, whatever it is, playing an instrument. Do that thing and let it be a vehicle toward you bettering yourself, because the best thing that you can do for the world around you is be the best version of yourself. Everything starts from you. Everything starts from within. And you can only ever meet somebody as deeply as you've met yourself. So sometimes you have to put your head down and do that work to be better, because when you're better for you, you're better for everybody else too. It's funny, or maybe not funny. It's interesting to me that I've gotten to, this point in my own journey of, and for anybody watching, the reason I keep playing with my mustache and stuff on this video is because I did mustache wax earlier today for the first time in a while, and I didn't put enough, so it's not really holding very well right now because I did it this morning. But anyway, side note, sorry. I Yeah, I just I think it's very interesting that I have gotten to the point that I am in now, because I feel like the only way that you get to a point of caring about your mental health, about prioritizing it, about wanting to be better, about wanting to do better, is when you crawl through the shit. And I have crawled through my fair share of shit in my life. I mean, I've talked about a ton of it on this show thus far, and I don't feel the need to reiterate all of it. But I think that we need to give more credit to people that are struggling. I think we need to not take other people's struggles personally. They have to be accountable for their things. You have to be accountable for yours. If somebody makes you feel a certain way, you have to be responsible to communicate that. And if they aren't receptive to it, then maybe it's not somebody that you should be having that conversation with in the first place. Or the flip side of that being, maybe they weren't in the best place. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they were having a bad moment. So give grace and understanding as well. If somebody outright disrespects you and doesn't care for it and doesn't own up to it or apologize or make note of it, then you can decide what to do from there. But don't take somebody at a moment's notice. Let somebody have time to breathe. Let somebody have time to understand their feelings and communicate when they're able. And you have to do the same. I think when it comes to mental health disorders, whatever they may be, when it just comes to anything, if you're having a bad day, we need to try to not let it exp- we need to not let it exacerbate other things, and we need to not let it trickle into other areas of our life. If you're having a bad day, when you walk into work, you leave it at the door. If you had a bad day at work, you leave it at the door when you come home. And when I say that, I don't mean don't talk about it. I don't mean bury it, but I mean that those things have a time and a place. Everything in this life has a time and a place. Don't be the one to ignore your feelings or not talk, but don't be the one to overshare and just trauma dump on people and try to bury them with you where you're at. Because it's not their responsibility to be where you are, nor is it your responsibility to be where they are. I extend myself way further than I should a lot of the time, and I do that because I feel like I have an above average capacity to do so, but also because it does enrich me, and it's something that I think that I'm good at, and I have a skill at being there for people. And don't get me wrong, it has not always been perfect. I don't always listen as well as I should. I don't always take the right things in stride. Sometimes I share and I'm a little bit cold, or sometimes I don't have the wherewithal to understand where somebody else may be. But I try my best in everything that I do to do right by others and to be there for people and to be honest about myself with myself, because it's the most important thing that you can do, is just be 100% unapologetically you, and be realistic and be honest and accept who you are, where you are. But if you're trying to change it, still accept who you are right now and where you are in the moment. I think that it is unbelievably important to check in on yourself and check in on your mental health. I think it is unbelievably important to try to check in on others in the same capacity. Call your friends, call your parents, call your loved ones, talk to your partners, ask them if they're okay. And if they don't give you the answer you're looking for, or they don't give you an answer at all, then at least, you extended the olive branch, you tried. And then, just let them know, like, hey, if you don't want to talk right now, that's okay, but I'm here if you do. And let other people do the same for you. I'm terrible at it, but it is so, man, it is so beautiful to have people in your life that give a fuck about what's going on with you. It is so nice to have friends that care about you for you, and have partners that care about us for who we are and want nothing but our betterment and want to be a part of it. And my girlfriend recently told me something that has not sunk in all the way yet. That was really impactful to me. And she said, "I hope you know that you completely enrich my life." And that's it's a beautiful compliment. But when I questioned it. I was like, "Really?" And she was like, "Yeah, like it's not just physical attraction. It's not just your mind. It's the way you're attentive. It's the way that you care about me, that you show affection, that you try to take care of me, but also the way that you think and the way that you take care of other people and the way that you care about your friends and your hobbies and your interests and your positive attitude and you positively influencing the way that I want to eat and take care of myself. She was like, absolutely. You add to my life and you make my life better. And it's things like that that confuse the shit out of me all the time. It's when people share those types of things that really kind of throw me for a loop. But those are also the things that really make you feel good about who you are. Um, don't be afraid to compliment people and don't be afraid to take a compliment. I have also been very periodically throughout my life terrible at receiving compliments and admiration and adulation and any form because at times it felt like I didn't deserve it, but also, it's just I don't know, it's just not something that I particularly understand that well or something that I'm like, why me? Like why I enrich your life? That's crazy. Um, but that circles back to the fact that you never know how you can impact somebody. You never know if you are positively making a change for somebody. There's a guy who left me a voice note over Instagram recently about an episode that I did of the podcast, and I haven't gotten the chance to reach back out yet because I've been busy, but he watches the show, so maybe he'll see this. But he shared some personal stuff about, his own journey with sobriety and with his own journey of mental health and awareness and his relationship to music. And, he told me that he thinks I'm a great interviewer, and he told me he thinks that the way that I prepare is good, and you can tell that I do my diligence and that I know what I can get out of the person, and just gave me flowers, but also said, hey, I want you to know that what you're doing is making a difference and it is affecting people. And even if it's only one person, like it is something good. And I hope that you keep doing it because you are good at it and you are doing something good. And to kind of dip into my own mental health struggles, that's something that I think about all the time is like the quantitative versus the qualitative. And I don't think that there's anybody when they start a project, maybe like depending on the medium, but with a public forum type thing or a podcast or something on display, I don't know if there's anybody that doesn't start it with at least some intention of wanting it to succeed and wanting it to grow. I started this as a passion project, and that's what it is. And I do it because I enjoy it, and I do it because I want to give back. But of course, there's the part of me that's like, man, I wish how do I get more viewers? How do I get more subscribers? How do I get more people to listen? And that's with intention to wanting to better people and get it out there and not from a selfish place, but also, you're putting in time and you're putting in effort, and the fact that people can see that is wonderful. And it means a lot to me, when people support you and people believe in you, even if you disparage yourself and knock it down and whatever the case is. I can just say personally that I hope that anybody that follows this podcast or listens or watches or anything, if you give a shit at all about this, it means more to me than you know. And wherever it does go, I'm not ever gonna, I might not ever be the next fucking Joe Rogan, and I might not ever be more than something that I do in my living room, but it's something that I enjoy and that I hope has a positive impact on people. But to continue and just go a little deeper with my own things, I really, if you're interested in that, go back to the last episode of season one and the first episode of season two, and I really talk about a lot of my personal struggles and things that I've unearthed and aversions that I have and a lot of that stuff. So I don't need to dedicate this to me at all or go into all of my shit because that's not what this is about. This is about men's mental health as a whole. But I do think that I have fortunately, and I don't think unfortunately, I have dealt with a lot of things. I've experienced death at a young age, suicide of people I haven't experienced. You know what I mean? I have um I've experienced death of family members, of friends. I've experienced people that were lost to suicide and drug addiction. I've experienced my own drug addiction, bodily injuries that took away time of my life, poor relationships, poor decisions, mistakes. I've incurred all the things that I have incurred. I say that I've incurred them fortunately because I think every single thing I've ever dealt with has made me who I am and has made me tough and strong, but vulnerable. And it goes back to that well-roundedness of having a foot on each side of that line at all times and being able to do both and be sound within yourself. Um, I just think it's important to think about mental health. I think it's important to do this work, to have these conversations. I don't want to be one of those five men that incur a mental health related struggle and don't talk about it. I don't want to be one of the men that is four times more likely to commit suicide than a woman. I don't, or just than anybody. Um, I don't want to see my friends struggle in silence. I don't want to see people hurt when they don't need to, or rather be there when they need to hurt so that way that they don't have to hurt on their own or hurt forever. Um, Bad times don't last. Things get better. They can get better. You have to work for it, but they can get better and they will get better. Um, I made a post recently talking about that if you can choose to be in a bad mood, you can choose to be in a good mood. And somebody replied to it saying that it was toxic positivity and went kind of a different route in not the vein that I was trying to talk about, saying how we're in a country that has her views on the terrible political landscape and the oppression that the country is kind of seeing, and it's time to stand up and fight for our rights and all these things, which was a way overestimation of what I was talking about. But it did open the door for me to kind of, and I responded honestly to them saying, listen, I respect your opinion. I have every, belief in what you do. Sometimes there is time for radical reform and there is time to be loud and be vocal and all of that. I personally am not choosing to have discourse just because it's something I'm not super educated on. Perhaps that's with an air of naivety. Perhaps that's, as educated as I choose to be on some things. There's other things that I don't choose to be that educated, or not don't choose to be, but you can only learn so many fucking things at the same time. Um, I prioritize the things that are close to me. I prioritize the things that I think have value to me, and I prioritize the things that I'm interested in. And for anybody that wants to have discourse about other things, I'm always open to learn and be willing, but it kind of threw me for a loop to hear that it was like toxic positivity, because I don't know if I believe that there is such a thing as toxic positivity. I understand within the construct of looking at it as, um, there's all these other negative things happening in the world, and it is a time to be weary and pay attention to what's going on. And I'm not saying that it isn't, but I don't think they're toxic positivity. Yeah, I mean, perhaps if I wasn't having the conversation to also understand that there's a reality within positivity. Being positive doesn't mean that you're fixing everything in the world. Being positive or trying to have a positive outlook on things doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problems of the world. It doesn't mean that it's going to solve oppression or diplomatic affairs or whatever the case may be. But I do think that choosing to be in a good mood and choosing to be positive, like, I'll be very forthcoming. I woke up today in a really not great mood. I didn't feel great about, and for no particular reason. I just woke up and I was a little drained and a little tired and you know, just wasn't in a great headspace. But you have to be the one to do something about that. So I got up and spent time with my dog and meditated and did my morning routine and stretched. And I, in my gratitude practice, I sat and I really thought about all the things in my life that I truthfully am grateful for and realizing how many wonderful things I do have. And you know what? Not every day is going to be a bed of fucking roses and not every day is perfect. But if you have good things in your life, take that for what it's worth and do something about that and do something with that and just understand that there is I'm sorry if people don't agree. There's always something to feel good about. It could literally be the fact that you woke up and opened your eyes. It could literally be the fact that you have a breath in your lung, even if in your lungs, even if it's not, if you're incurring negative things and you're dealing with situations that are not your fault, like those that she spoke about. I'm not saying that being happy and being in a positive headspace, I can recognize I'm a white man in America and I am incredibly privileged. But at the same time, and maybe I wouldn't have this outlook if I was incurring those types of things, but I feel like it would be even more important to have that kind of an outlook if I was. I think that our mental health is it is something that is so readily tangible and something so heavily predicated on what we choose to do. And we always talk about being able to control the things that you can control and not the things that you can't. You can't control, if you have clinical depression, you can't always control that. If you have anxiety, you can't control that. But there are things within your mental health that you can control. You can choose to do things that make you feel better. You can choose to talk to people. You can choose to go to therapy. You can choose to confide in loved ones. You can choose to get outside and get some sun. You can choose to be active because physical health aids in mental health because, as Kuhn Shah said, it's all health. There are things within your mental health that are within your grasp and within your capacity to do something about. And I like the idea that if you can control everything if you can control what you're able to control, you have a lot of power and you take back a lot of power from things that might make you feel powerless. I I think that knowledge is power, imagination is power, love is power, optimism is power, positivity is power. But I digress from that to say that I do equally understand that life can be very difficult sometimes, and you can be dealt a hand that you were not prepared for. There are things in your life that you can't control. There are things that you're not able to understand. It's fucking hard. But I don't believe that anybody in this world is truly alone. I think the people that are alone because they want to be or because they make themselves be. And the only reason I say that, again, some people do not have the fortune of others. Some people do not have extensive networks of friends. They're in bad circumstances. They're in scenarios where they don't have a ton of people around. But then you have to go try to find somebody. You have to go try to find those people. I don't think anybody in this world should be alone. Don't get me wrong. There are times where you need your solitude. There are times where you need to be alone, as I did this past year or this past fall into winter when I kind of secluded myself and went into a bit of an isolation. And it was wonderful in its intention and beautiful at the start, but eventually I think it turned into making me even more depressed about where I was because I was just trying to stay in being alone. I don't think anybody should do that to themselves long term. Take the time you need to be alone, to be with your thoughts, to reconcile things and dig into yourself. But also, I mean, we're social creatures. Part of being in this world and being alive is experiencing people and understanding people and letting people see you and being heard and being seen. So, in the spirit of Men's Mental Health Month, and just in the spirit of life and mental health in general, I will choose to be seen and be heard by people that choose to do so. I will allow people into my life. I will allow myself to be open to those things and to those people. I will continue to work hard. I will continue to try to navigate this world and do the work on this project and work on other things and try to help people and benefit people and make myself better and go to therapy and do the things that I can do to try to benefit my own mental health, therefore in ways hopefully trickling out to benefit others. And in the spirit of mental health, I hope that you do the same. I truthfully believe that we are all human, having a human experience, and I truly believe that there are so many wonderful things in this world and things that can be done. And to circle back to all of those statistics, don't be a number. Don't just be a statistic. Be you, be an individual, be a person, be a part of a solution, be a part of something bigger, be a part of something wonderful, which is life. Meet people as deeply as you've met yourself. Let people meet you where you are. Understand and accept who you are and where you are, and put your nose down to the grind and get shit done and explore and adventure and grow and have experiences and travel and meet people and do things and fucking kiss your friends and tell people that you love them and give compliments and just put good energy into the world, because those are the things that come back to find you. I have nothing but the best intention with this podcast, with this project. I have nothing but the best intention for my life on a day-to-day basis. I have nothing but the best of intention for you and yours. And to anyone watching this, prioritize your mental health, prioritize your health, your wellness, your physical health. Take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and love people. And to the men specifically, don't need to be a fucking tough guy all the time. Be strong, be a man, but being a man also means being honest and being open and being vulnerable. You are not alone. You're not a problem if you have a problem. And just understand that we're all in this together, and you have friends and people in your life that want to know and people that care about you. And if you feel like they don't, I repeat, go into the description of this email or into the description of this episode. I'll put the podcast email and reach out to me. Go to the Instagram page and shoot me a DM. If you know me and you watch this and you're having a tough time and you have my phone number, text me, call me. Respectfully, I'm opening that door back up to where I kind of closed that off a little bit. And I needed some privacy. But I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I want to let that go a little bit, because I feel like there's a lot that I can do to help people. So I say, as I did many times in the past, that I truthfully believe in you and everything you do in this life, and I love you. And as a final message for this episode, take care of the men in your life. Take care of the women in your life. Take care of the people in your circle and the people that are not. If you put out a hand and somebody bats it away, don't never put your hand out again. If somebody puts their hand out and you don't take it, and there's another hand somewhere down the line, don't be afraid to take it. Help people, love people, and do everything you can in this life to breathe good intention into what you do and be the best version of yourself that you can be. I hope that you take something from this episode that's positive. I hope that you take something that's real. Is it a short episode? Sure. Is it something that's important? That's up to you. I commend anybody that is on their journey of mental health. I wish you love, luck, and strength wherever it takes you. And wherever you are on your journey, remember that you're not alone, but equally that you're exactly where you should be. So I hope that you take care of yourself. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next episode. And until then, take care and be well.